Okay, let's
Okay.
unpack this, because when I first looked at the stack of documents we have for today, I honestly thought I was reading a history book,
Mm.
or maybe, some dystopian novel from the 80s. But then I looked at the date stamp on the sources.
It gives you a serious case of cognitive dissonance, doesn't it?
Completely. I
Yeah.
mean, we were talking about a new legal code that explicitly uses the word slave
Hmm.
in 2026.
That's right. It's
Uh-huh.
jarring.
So, welcome to the deep dive. Today is February 1st, 2026. And our mission today is to look at exactly what is happening inside Afghanistan. Because the narrative, it feels like it's changed.
It has.
We aren't just talking about the chaotic aftermath of the withdrawal anymore. We are looking at something new, a transition from emergency rule to a formalized, codified system that is reshaping the entire society from the ground up.
And that's a crucial distinction you just made.
We've got UN reports, we've got leaked documents analyzed by rights groups like Rowadari, and just recent news coverage.
For the last, 4.5 years since the takeover in 2021, we've mostly seen rule by decree. It was often ad hoc, chaotic.
Right, local commanders doing their own thing.
Exactly. But what we are seeing now, specifically with this new criminal procedure code approved in January 2026, is the institutionalization of that ideology. It's no longer just a warlord saying, do this. It is now the written law of the land.
And that law, let's just jump straight into the deep end here. You mentioned the criminal procedure code. This was signed by the supreme leader, Hibatullah Akhundzada, just last month.
It was.
What exactly is in this thing?
Well, it's a massive document, 119 articles, and it fundamentally restructures the Afghan legal system. But the part that is grabbing headlines, and rightly so, is the explicit reintroduction of slavery into the legal lexicon.
Specifically the term ghulam, right?
Exactly, ghulam. The code explicitly states that certain punishments, what they call tazir, apply whether the offender is free or a slave.
Let's just pause on that. Because words matter in law. By writing that down, by distinguishing between a free person and a slave in a procedural code,
You're formally recognizing it.
they are making enslavement a legal status.
Yes. It's not a metaphor. It's a legal category. And it goes even further. What's fascinating and frankly terrifying is how this code stratifies the entire society. It essentially creates a caste system.
I saw this in the notes and I had to reread it 3 times. The Rowadari analysis breaks it down into 4 distinct classes.
Correct. It's almost medieval in its structure. At the very top, you have the religious scholars, the ulema,
The people writing the law.
the people writing the laws and interpreting the texts. Now, here's the kicker. If a member of the ulema commits a crime, the code says they receive advice.
Advice. Like, hey, maybe don't do that again.
Essentially, yes. It's an institutionalized, get-out-of-jail-free card. Then you have the second tier, the elites. These are your tribal elders, your commanders.
Okay.
They get summons or warnings. They aren't seeing the inside of a cell unless they really, really mess up.
So the top 2 tiers are protected. Then you get to the middle class.
Who face imprisonment, standard procedure. And then at the bottom, you have the lower class.
And what happens to them?
They face the full force of the state's violence. Imprisonment, harsh corporal punishment, public lashings. So the severity of your punishment depends entirely on who you are, not just on what you did.
It institutionalizes privilege in the starkest way possible. It sounds like a system designed to protect the coalition of power, the clerics and the fighters, while strictly controlling everyone else.
That is the exact definition of this framework. And to ensure that control, the code also deputizes the population.
What do you mean?
Article 4 and Article 6 are particularly worrying. They empower ordinary citizens to punish sins they witness.
Wait, so if I'm walking down the street and I see someone doing something I think is a sin, I can punish them myself.
The code says any Muslim who witnesses a sin has the right to punish the offender.
That sounds like a recipe for absolute chaos.
Or total fear. It creates a surveillance state where your neighbor, the shopkeeper, or just a passerby becomes the police, the judge, and the jury.
It dissolves social trust completely.
You can't trust anyone because anyone could accuse you of a sin just to settle a personal grudge.
It effectively turns the entire population into a police force. And I assume if I say, hey, this law seems unfair, that is also covered.
Oh, absolutely. Criticism is criminalized. The Ministry of Justice recently stated that opposing these laws amounts to opposing Sharia. So dissent isn't a political crime, it's a religious transgression.
So you have a rigid class system, legalized slavery, vigilante justice, but we have to pivot to the group that seems to be the primary target of almost all this legislation.
Women.
Yeah. If we connect this to the bigger picture,
Yeah.
international bodies like the UN and CEDAW,
That's the Committee on the Elimination of Discrimination Against Women.
they're now using the term gender apartheid. And when you look at the accumulation of laws, it's the only term that really fits.
It is.
We've talked about the bans on education before. Everyone knows about that. But the sources mentioned the Vice and Virtue Law from August 2024 as the foundation for this. And there's this concept of ara. Can you explain that?
Ara usually refers to parts of the body that must be covered for modesty, but the Taliban have expanded this definition drastically. Under these laws, a woman's voice is now considered private, or ara.
Just think about the practical implication of that.
Yeah.
If your voice is private, then speaking in public is effectively an act of indecent exposure.
Exactly. Speaking loudly, singing, reciting poetry, anything where a woman's voice can be heard by men outside her family is effectively criminalized.
It's an erasure of presence.
It is. You cannot be seen because of the full covering, and now you cannot be heard. It is a sonic erasure.
And they've even baked this into the building codes. I saw the decree regarding windows.
Yes, that was from late 2024. New buildings cannot have windows that overlook a neighbor's courtyard or kitchen. The architectural logic is to ensure women are never seen, even when they are inside their own homes.
It's a complete restructuring of the physical environment to guarantee invisibility.
Right.
But there's a pragmatic life or death consequence to this, too. The healthcare directive from December 2024.
This is where the ideology collides with biological reality in the most catastrophic way. They banned women from nursing and midwifery programs.
But we're in a segregated society where women are strictly forbidden from seeing male doctors.
Correct. So you just follow the logic. You cannot see a male doctor. You are banning the training of new female doctors and nurses. You are effectively creating a timeline where once the current generation of female healthcare workers retires or flees, there will be zero healthcare for half the population.
It's a mathematical guarantee of rising maternal mortality.
The Georgetown Institute for Women, Peace and Security calls it a catastrophic threat. It's a slow-motion health disaster that will kill thousands.
And for the women living through this, the new 2026 criminal code doesn't offer any protection, does it?
Quite the opposite. It codifies domestic violence. The new code explicitly authorizes husbands to administer discretionary punishment, that tazir we talked about, to their wives.
It legally allows a husband to beat his wife.
Yes. And here is where it gets really, well, disturbing regarding how the law values life. The Georgetown analysis pointed out a specific discrepancy.
Go on.
Under this new code, if a husband injures his wife, he might face roughly 15 days in prison.
15 days.
But if someone forces birds or animals to fight like dogfighting, that carries a 5-month sentence.
Wait, let me get this straight.
Yeah.
Injuring your wife is 15 days. Dogfighting is 5 months.
That is the legal prioritization written into the text. Animal welfare, in that specific instance, carries a stiffer penalty than the safety of a woman in her own home.
That is, I don't even have a word for that. It's just devastating. It shows you exactly where the priorities lie.
It does, and it's compounded by the movement restrictions. You can't travel more than 78 kilometers without a mahram, a male guardian. You can't take public transport. It's total immobilization.
So we have a legal system that entraps people, specifically women. But we have to widen the lens because this legal nightmare is unfolding against a backdrop of total economic collapse.
Yes.
I'm looking at these hunger stats, and they are terrifying.
The economic context is the backdrop to all of this. The UNDP reports that 75% of the population is now subsistence insecure.
3/4 of the country.
They are living hand to mouth. 9.5 million people are severely food insecure. That is technical speak for on the brink of famine. And this is all happening while the country is facing a massive refugee crisis.
I saw that figure, 2.1 million people returned.
In just the first half of 2025, over 2 million Afghans forced to return from Pakistan and Iran.
These are refugees being pushed back over the border.
Yes, and they are coming back to a country with no jobs, no housing, and a legal system that targets them if they are poor. Remember that class system?
They fall squarely into that lower class category.
They're walking right into a trap.
And people are desperate. When you have that level of poverty, people start making impossible choices. The sources mention some horrific survival mechanisms.
Survival mechanisms is such a clinical term for horrors. We're seeing reports of organ trafficking people selling their kidneys to feed their children. We're seeing the sale of children themselves.
Daughters sold into forced marriages, sons into labor.
Brick kilns, carpet weaving, you name it. And there was a mention of bacha-basi resurfacing.
I thought the Taliban claimed to have banned that completely.
They did, officially. Bacha-basi, the sexual exploitation of young boys by powerful men, was supposed to be gone. But reports from the U.S. State Department and others indicate it is resurfacing, particularly among the elites and commanders.
Which brings us right back to the class system we started with.
Exactly. If the elite class only gets a warning for crimes and the lower class gets lashed, then the elites can exploit the children of the poor with relative impunity. The legal code enables the abuse. It's a closed loop.
So you have this humanitarian disaster, this legal nightmare, and a regime that seems to be immune to pressure. Which brings us to the rest of the world. Where is the action? It's 2026.
That raises a really important question about the effectiveness of our international systems. There has been some legal action, to be fair.
Okay.
In July 2025, the International Criminal Court issued arrest warrants for the Supreme Leader, Akhundzada, for crimes against humanity, specifically gender persecution.
But he's still in Kandahar. He's still signing these decrees.
Exactly. Warrants are just pieces of paper without enforcement. Then you have countries like Australia, Canada, Germany taking action under the CEDAW Treaty, trying to hold them accountable.
But again, does that change the reality on the ground?
It hasn't yet. And then there is the money dilemma, the sanctions paradox. The U.S. and others froze state assets, about $9.5 billion. But to keep the economy from totally collapsing, they are shipping in cash.
Cash shipments. You mean literal cash?
Yes. Pallets of U.S. dollars. About $80 million every 2 weeks or so, flown into Kabul. It's meant to provide liquidity, to keep the currency from becoming worthless so people can buy bread.
But critics argue this is just a lifeline for the regime.
Precisely. Former Afghan officials, many analysts, they argue that this effectively subsidizes the regime. It keeps the lights on, which gives the Taliban the stability they need to write laws legalizing slavery.
So we are essentially subsidizing the jailers to keep the prisoners alive.
It's a catch-22. You cut the money, the people starve. You send the money, the regime stabilizes.
And amidst this dilemma, there's a growing critique about selective compassion. I saw this in some of the sources, like the Christian Post and comments from figures like Elon Musk.
Right. They ask why there are massive global protests for conflicts like Ukraine, but relative silence on this, on gender apartheid.
That's a fair point. We are talking about half the population being erased, and it feels like the world has just changed the channel.
There is a sense of fatigue, but there are pockets of resistance. There's a People's Tribunal for Women of Afghanistan scheduled for Madrid. It's a grassroots attempt to put these crimes on the record.
Even if they can't enforce a verdict.
Even so, it's about creating a historical record, refusing to let the silence win, because if we don't record it, it's like it never happened.
It really feels like we are watching a test of the entire international human rights framework.
We are. I mean, if we summarize what we've discussed, we have a regime that has moved beyond chaotic rule to a formalized legal structure, a structure that explicitly values animal welfare over women's safety, legalizes slavery, and entrenches a class hierarchy.
It's not an emergency measure anymore. It's the new normal.
It is the new normal, codified in black and white.
So what does this all mean for us, for the listener? What do we take away from this?
I think it forces us to ask a very uncomfortable question. We have all these institutions, the UN, the ICC, all these conventions on human rights. We talk about universal rights.
Right.
But if a state in 2026 can explicitly write slavery and the erasure of women back into its penal code, and the international community can't stop it,
Then what?
does the current international human rights framework actually have any teeth? Or is it merely symbolic?
That is a heavy thought to leave us with. But I think it's the right one. We have to confront the reality that never again is happening right now, and we are all watching.
And normalizing it, that's the danger.
If you want to see the raw data yourself,
Yeah.
and I really suggest you do look up the UN Human Rights Council report from late 2025 or the analysis by Rowadari, it is worth reading the primary sources.
Absolutely. Knowledge is the first step against silence.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. It wasn't an easy one, but it was a necessary one. We'll catch you on the next deep dive.